Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alright, so today we're going to continue with chapter 7. We're still in chapter 7. So before this, we have learned the environmental benefit, yeah? How to assess the environmental benefit, incremental benefit, and so on. For today, we're going to look at the cost side, yeah, cost. So how, yeah, to assess costs for environmental economic decision making. Right. So, analogs with the incremental benefit, cost also have has its own incremental cost. Yeah. So, what is incremental cost? It is the change in cost arising from an environmental policy initiative, right? So the relevant change in the increase in cost is associated with policy-induced improvements in environmental quality. So any act or any activities to improve environment must will associate costs. Yeah, so there will be costs associated with it. So that is the additional costs associated with the improvement in environmental quality activities is known as incremental cost. Um, so this incremental cost will reflect the economic cost. Yeah, will also reflect the economic cost. For instance, economic explicit cost and also implicit cost. Right. So we also would like to look at the environmental explicit cost and implicit cost. Yeah. So usually this implicit and explicit cost usually we heard in economic. Yeah, in economic, but in environmental economic also it has its own and explicit and also implicit cost. So what is explicit environmental cost? It includes the administrative monitoring and enforcement expenses paid by the public sectors, as well as compliance costs incurred by virtually all sectors of the economy. So any cost associated with the environmental activities is known as explicit costs, virtual sectors lah, virtually. Maknanya benda yang kita nampak, expenses yang dikeluarkan ya untuk economic activities ini dipanggil sebagai explicit cost. Any cost yang kita nampak lah. Um, for example kalau apa ni yang kita selalu dengar land labor capital is the resources, the cost of land labor capital is known as explicit cost. Rent, wages and also interest is known as explicit cost. Sama juga macam environmental cost lah, explicit cost yang benda yang kita nampak lah, expenses yang kita nampak. Okay, in economic kita selalu dengar there are two components of cost, fixed cost and also a variable cost. Okay. So in the context of environmental policy, the accounting equivalence of these categories is known as capital cost and also operating cost. Capital cost and also operating cost. Right. So what is capital cost? So capital costs are fixed expenditure for plant, equipment, and then construction in progress and production process changes associated with abatement. So any cost associated with abatement, also known as explicit capital cost. And operating cost is variable expenditures incurred in the operation and maintenance of abatement processes. For example, spending on material parts and supplies. Direct labors, fuel, research and development is known as operating costs. Okay. So a critical distinction between these two categories, capital costs and operating costs. Is in how the are related. These are related to the level of abatement. So this cost, how it will relate to the level of abatement. Okay. So for a capital cost, Capital cost is incurred regardless of the amount of pollution emitted. Regardless of amount of pollution emitted, a capital cost is incurred by the firm and so on. Yeah. So this analogs with the definition of fixed cost. Maknanya macam fixed cost, kita tahu tak kisahlah kita operate business kita, kita jalankan business kita, ada pendapatan, ada income ke tidak, kita tetap perlu membayar fixed cost. Ya, sama macam capital cost. Ya. But for operating cost, sama macam variable cost. Maksudnya apa? Kalau kita ada production, kita bayar cost ini. Kalau tak ada production, kita tak bayar. Zero lah. Zero cost. Yeah. So operating costs are directly related to the quantity of abatement. Kalau ada abatement, adalah cost. Kalau tak ada abatement, zero lah variable. This operating cost. Yeah. So example of operating cost is cost of monitoring emission, and then cost of labor to run an abatement facility. Untuk capital cost, example, capital cost, installed price of scrubber system to control air pollution. So kita dalam capital cost tu kita kena install something kan, a scrubber system. So that one is benda yang fix lah, yang kita tak boleh ubah, fixed input. Bila ada fixed input di dalam tu, itu kita costnya kita panggil sebagai fixed cost. Jadi dalam environment ni kita panggil apa? Capital cost. Okay, macam untuk operating cost itu dia associated dengan variable input yang boleh berubah-ubah. That's why kita panggil sebagai variable cost dalam ekonomi, tapi dalam environment kita panggil sebagai operating cost. Right? And then what is implicit cost? Tadi explicit cost, sekarang implicit cost. Implicit cost is the value of any non-monetary effects that negatively influence society's well-being. So any non-monetary effect atau expenses. For example, value of diminished product variety arising from a ban on certain input. The time cost of searching the substitutes. The reduced convenience that environmental control policies might impose. Contohnya lah kita ambil yang contoh ketiga tu. So bila government impose Environmental Quality Act, and then dia impose policy-policy, dia akan menyebabkan apa? Company ini tidak selesa, dan maksudnya dia perlu membayar macam-macam, dia perlu kurangkan contoh kita perlu kurangkan penggunaan air conditioner. Jadi keselesaan itu tidak ada. Kita terpaksa melepaskan keselesaan kerana kita mahu we want to conserve our environment. We want to protect our environment. So because of that, kita reduce the usage of air conditioner. Jadi faham tak dekat situ? Maknanya opportunity cost yang kita terpaksa lepaskan untuk conserve the environment, to protect the environment. Itu yang kita panggil sebagai implicit cost, which is non-monetary. So after this, kita akan continue dengan conceptually valuing environmental costs.